So welcome everybody to our unique webinar today. It's the first time or second time we've run a webinar like this. Thank you so much for joining. And just before we start, I'll briefly introduce myself. So my name's Sophie Chammings, and I am the Senior Marketing Manager for the Executive MBA programme. And we're honoured to be joined today by Siobhan Frank, and Siobhan is our Programme Director, and Siobhan will introduce herself shortly. So just before we begin, just to let you know a little bit about the format of the webinar. So we're going to have quite an informal Q&A session, Siobhan and I. So we've developed some questions that we're frequently asked by people interested in the Executive MBA, and we're going to be going through those together. And hopefully by the end of the webinar, you'll actually know a lot more about the Executive MBA at Oxford. You'll understand what makes us unique, and we'll also touch on application dates, so imminent application dates and next steps in terms of actually what you can do next to progress your journey with us. We also will have an informal Q&A at the end. So the webinar will be just under an hour, and we'll make sure we've got time to answer as many questions as we can at the end. The webinar is being recorded, and everybody, whether you're in attendance and those who haven't attended, will be sent a follow-up email with the recording so you can watch it back at your own leisure. So without further ado, let's begin. So Siobhan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's fantastic to have you here. Could you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do and in your role and your experience at Oxford?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I get started, just to say welcome, everyone. We always enjoy seeing people join from around the globe and who are interested in the program. So thank you very much for joining us. We hope today is a little bit interesting. You learn a little bit about the program here today. So just a little bit about me. I'll be really quick. My name is Siobhan Frank. I'm the program director here for the Executive MBA at Oxford Business School. I've been with the business school for about 2.5 years now, formerly sort of on the recruitment admissions marketing side. So I'm very familiar with people who are interested in the program. And then recently stepping in as program director. So in my capacity, we see anything from recruitment admissions through to marketing on the program, but then also thinking about the program delivery and your experience as students on the program too. So that wide range, all the way from consideration through to graduation, is quite important. So I'll be very quick about that one. The business school, love working with the business school, love working with executive education students. I think it is a unique and a really interesting group of people who are coming onto the program, but we can discuss that in a little bit more detail shortly. But what I just say as well, it is a Q&A today. So it's about you, it's about answering the questions that you've got. We know that we'll try and preemptively answer some of those questions here today that we get regularly, but please do, if you've got any questions, pop them into the Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Siobhan, I know that the Oxford Executive MBA is very special to you, as it is, I think, to all of us that work with the fantastic programme. I think listeners would really like to probably understand, before we delve into details, why this is, what's unique about it, and maybe just learn a bit more about the kind of big mission of the programme and the values and what they can expect in that sense.
Yeah, of course. So I think, I mean, it's very easy for me to say how much I love this program. I think it's a fabulous program, and I think the people who come on it are pretty special. And that's one thing I'll touch on really quickly, because I think that's a really important part of the Executive MBA. When we're thinking about the school and of the program, the school's mission is really transforming individuals who transform businesses, who transform the world. So when we're thinking about that context, we're really thinking about leadership in a larger scale and in a wider scale. So that is something that I think is very, very important here on the program. We are creating leaders of tomorrow, leaders of today, who are going to be making a genuine social impact. So that's very important here. What makes this program special? I think there's quite a few things that make it special. I think one, first and foremost, the people who come on the program are exceptional. Executive MBA students are a really, really interesting bunch, and I'd say executive students in general are a really interesting bunch. They come from all sorts of different backgrounds. So I think it's very interesting when you see people who come from all sorts of different industries or all sorts of different regions who come together and think about challenges that probably most people are existing in some form or another in their workplace or professional experience, and then applying that together from really different lenses. So it's that different lens and that transformation, looking at, you know, a general problem or challenge that someone has, and then applying it to the wider kind of context and different regional contexts, different sector contexts, etc. I'd say on the program itself, I mean, this program couldn't be what it is without the faculty that we've got here and without being situated within the wider University of Oxford. So being a part of the University of Oxford means that we're part of a university ecosystem, which means that the business school isn't a standalone thing. It's not a standalone program. There's opportunities for people who are out there to engage with the university in different ways to help touch maybe in the subject areas that they're quite interested in different capacities. So I think being situated in a higher education institution already that's designed for thought, for education, for advancements of society, that's really, really important. And I think it is something that here, particularly at Oxford, is quite a unique experience.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I think that leads me really nicely on to the next question. And I'm just going to pull on the diversity piece. So you mentioned about the diversity of the cohort and the value that that adds. And I know that's really closely linked to the #1 in the QS ranking that the Executive MBA Oxford currently holds and also held last year. And I know that the Executive MBA was cited particularly high for employer reputation, diversity and thought leadership. So #1 in the world. And I wonder if you can just tell us a bit more about the QS rankings and actually expand on those points a little bit more.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So in terms of the QS rankings, we're really happy to announce that we've been ranked top executive MBA program for 2nd year in a row. What that means, I think, when we start looking at rankings, it's always important to have a look at what's being measured within those rankings. And of course, every ranking is slightly different and each ranking measures slightly different things. Within the QS rankings, we look at 5 different categories. So we've got things like diversity, we have things like thought leadership and employer reputation, career profiles, etc. on there. So if we look at the QS rankings, they evaluated 232 different executive education or executive MBA programs. We ended up in the top 5th percentile, both in diversity, employer reputation, and thought leadership. So what does that really mean for students on the program? So in terms of actual diversity on the program, we have on average, I would say about 38 different nationalities in the past. I would say the past 2 cohorts in particular have been quite high in that, which is great. And it's just one of those things that I think the very nature of being situated in the UK, being situated at the University of Oxford, and being a modular-based program means that we're able to have students who join us from all around the globe. So that week-long modular format actually enables people to fly in from different locations. We have people who are joining us from all different regions. Any region you can think of, we probably have someone who's on the course from that area. We even have people who fly in, say, for example, from New Zealand. I'd say that's typically the award for the longest commute onto the program, but they are flying back and forth for the program and joining us each time. So diversity, I think it's really thinking about regional diversity. That's really important when we're talking about classroom discussion and the value of classroom discussion. We'll get a little bit further into the webinar today about the different themes, the core themes of the program. Global complexity and risk is one of those core themes. So it's really important that we do have an international audience on the course, and we're quite lucky to be able to attract students from around the world on the program. I think as well, when we're thinking about the value of that network and the types of learnings that you can get from that network, it's quite important. When we start thinking about things like thought leadership and employer reputation, I mean, we're very fortunate to be situated within the wider University of Oxford, which has an incredible thought leadership, is well known for thought leadership. We've ranked #1 in the world for universities according to the Times Higher Education for 9 years in a row. And that really does, if you look at Times Higher Education, start looking at things like your research output of your university. So the quality of the research that happens here at the university is exceptionally high. And it does contribute overall to the quality and value here on the program as well. Then again, I would say employer reputation as well. Our students have a really good reputation coming from this university, coming from as well the program. The program has developed a pretty strong reputation in industry for producing really high quality students. And and employees beyond that as well, and oftentimes creating their own businesses off the back of that too.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So just moving on, and I suppose in a way taking a bit of a step back. So I know that viewers will be here at different stages in your journey. So some of you may be just starting to explore your executive MBA or your executive education or even MBA sort of landscape. And some of you may be a bit further down that decision-making journey. You may already know Oxford's the right place for you, or you may actually have refined your sort of your top list, if you like, of places to study to quite a tight level. So but I'm just wanting to step back and just wondering sort of, Siobhan, if you could just sort of share what reasons do people choose to do an executive MBA? We see all sorts of students on the programme with all sorts of goals and aspirations. Could you just summarise a few of those?
Yeah, absolutely. We have plenty of people have different motivations as to why they want to come on the program. Slightly different motivations depending on where you're coming from. I'd say there tends to be kind of buckets of categories of people that are interested in an executive MBA. Oftentimes you're looking at kind of those people who are looking to progress within their current organization or who are potentially looking to make a bit of a pivot. So they might have worked in a particular industry for a significant period of time and are thinking about what else, what if, and are starting to make that transition into something slightly different. We have quite a few people who come on the program who are interested in that entrepreneurial path, which again is one of our 3 key pillars here on the program. So in terms of thinking about that entrepreneurial journey, we have quite a few people who have either started something, are working in that space, or who are furthering that and hoping to get involved in it in the first place as well. Then we also have people kind of classic changing regions, again, making a change kind of falls within that space. But then what I'd say as well is, and it's something that we talk about often, is sort of the unconventional EMBA. I'd say there's never an unconventional EMBA. There's always a kind of a conventional EMBA insofar as it's open to quite a few different people and different kind of backgrounds. So we talk about the this insofar as you might have someone who has a really expert or technical background, who's been rising up in leadership and who's getting more and more involved in the actual running of a business, and then who realizes that, hey, I need that business language, or I need those business skills to be able to progress into the next stage. We have quite a few people in that space. So it could be anything, say, for example, from someone who's a clinical healthcare provider to someone who is a technical engineer who is getting more and more involved in the actual business component of it. And of course, we've got plenty of people in that space as well who are joining the program. But that's just a few. I'd say in terms of what we see on the program, we have a wide range of sort of ages and groups, but I'd say average age is about 39 on the program. We have average years working experience is about 15 with significant senior management experience on the program as well.
Great, thank you. And I think this is a really good place to kind of mention our student blog, or it should be called our student and alumni blog, really. But just in terms of the diversity of people from different sectors and countries and ages, if you haven't already checked out the blog, you can get to that through our website course page. If you scroll down the course page, there's a link through to it, and there's some really fantastic student blogs there that will talk about students and alumni talking about their journeys, as well as how the EMBA's contributed to their journeys and the impact that it's given them both personally and professionally. So yeah, at the end of this presentation, I'll pop a QR code up and that'll take you straight to our website course page. So this question, I think probably, Siobhan, repeats a little bit of what we've already said, but in case there's anything that you want to add, I feel that the viewers probably already can get a sense of how special Oxford is. But why do people choose Oxford specifically? Is there anything extra that you haven't sort of covered that you wanted to add at this point?
Yeah, of course. I think when you speak to people, and I think it's very natural that if someone's considering an executive MBA, it's very likely that they're considering doing an MBA at multiple schools at this stage. So if you're considering a program, you're probably considering multiple programs at this point. What I would say is that oftentimes, if you think about an accredited program, which an MBA is an accredited program, or most of the MBAs in the world are accredited, there's a certain level of homogeneity within the actual kind of structure of the program, and that's a necessity to become accredited. But what I would say is it's all those additional kind of components of it It's the focus of the program, which helps to kind of make someone's decision as to whether or not it's the right fit for them. So oftentimes we're thinking about fit, and students who ultimately end up choosing Oxford and ultimately end up choosing another university are choosing it because it's the right fit for them. So some of the things that they might consider are what are those types of electives that they'd be focusing on? What are the strengths of the program? So say, for example, our program really focuses on strategic leadership, global complexity and risk, and entrepreneurship. Those are three core themes that if someone's interested in those particular themes, it's going to become quite appealing to them to come to the program. Now, if they're interested in a slightly different area or a slightly different industry, that might be something where they might be considering a slightly different university, and that's totally fine as well. What I would say too as well is oftentimes I'd say other decision factors that we see amongst candidates are either thinking about, do I want a standalone business school or do I want a business school situated within a university? They're very different offerings in amongst that, and neither is wrong. I think it's just important to think about what it is that you want from your experience and be quite intentional about what you want from that experience as well. So here, oftentimes people are drawn to the fact that it's part of the wider university, and there are parts of the university that they can go on to engage with in different ways. So say, for example, like our Blavatnik School of Government or our Oxford Martin School, for example. The final one is then thinking about the actual structure of the program. So all of the different programs, I'd say this is probably where executive MBAs vary the most, is in the actual format of delivery. So some might be evenings and weekends, some might be week-long modular formats. It really depends on what your personal circumstances are as to whether or not that's beneficial to you or drawback to you, and what appeals. So we are a modular-based format. It does mean that we have we are afforded a more international cohort because we can have people who are flying in and make use of that time. Equally, it's a significant amount of time off work. So I think going into something like this with the eyes wide open is really important to think about actually what is the right fit for you, and does that work for you, or is it another format that works for you? I think that's quite an open and honest thing that you should be having with yourself, or thought you should be having with yourself.
Great, thank you. And we've had two really great questions. And I hope I've got one more question for you, Siobhan, which I think is really relevant. And then if it's okay with you, we'll answer these couple of questions. So I think, what kind of person is the ideal candidate for the Executive MBA? So I know that we're selective with who we choose and who we sort of accept onto the programme. So what are you actually looking for in someone when they apply?
Yeah, of course. So I think I can talk about two kind of components of that. I think you can see the basic eligibility criteria on our webpage. So things like having a minimum of 10 years working experience, at least 5 of which should be senior management experience. Oftentimes, quite a few people in the program have more experience than that. So meeting the minimum thresholds is really important. The minimum eligibility criteria is quite important. We do ask for, say, for example, GMAT, EA. We do ask for things like references and completion of essays as part of the application process. So submitting a very strong application, meaning that someone's taken the time, the care, the consideration to write something that's quite strong, is reflecting on what they want out of the program, etc. I think beyond that, then you're thinking about someone who, an ideal candidate is someone who has been reflective and is thinking about what is it that they want to get out of the program. I think spending that time is really important right before you get going. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to know exactly where you're going into once you finish the program, but certainly having a sense of what is it that you want to get out of it is really, really important. And I always say it's that kind of intentional purpose, or being intentionally purposeful in what you're doing, because a place like this, Oxford's really lovely, and we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail later. It's a very large institution, so being very clear about how you want to interact with the university is going to absolutely make your experience beyond. And we're very fortunate; our students do engage and are quite thoughtful in how they engage with the university. But again, always my suggestion as well, if you're thinking about someone who's coming onto the program, is that really like intentional purpose on the program.
Brilliant, thank you. So next we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual experience. So we're going to delve into the three core themes of the programme that Siobhan's already mentioned, which is strategic leadership, global complexity and risk, and entrepreneurial thinking. But before we do that, we have had a really great question. So I'm just going to read it out. So as someone seriously considering the Oxford Executive MBA, I'm keen to have a balanced view. Have there been instances where participants felt that the programme did not meet their expectations or fully align with their professional goals? If so, how does the programme team address such feedback to ensure continuous improvement? So that's a great
Yeah,
question.
great. I think that's a fabulous question. And I think that there's several components of that. I think when we think about a balanced view and meeting expectations, I think probably one of the things that I would say right at the beginning that we try to do on program is you've probably spoken to a member of the recruitment team, or if you haven't gotten to that point, you will likely speak to a member of the program team. If you're seriously considering making an application to the university and to the program, think about speaking with the alumni first. I think hearing from alumni or students on the program to hear what their actual experience is going to be really important. I'd say overall pretty good. It happens, I'd say most of the time, people kind of come in and they have a general sense of what they can expect on the program. I think as well, I think where sometimes people are disappointed perhaps is when they expect it to do it for them. So I think any program that you go on, there's a level of ownership that individuals have to take within themselves to make something of that program. There's obviously going to be things that are here to support you, but also going back to my point about being intentional, purposeful, is thinking about how you want to interact with it, what you want and need to get out of the experience. So that's quite important there. So I'd say maybe that's where it might happen if people haven't really given consideration to that first. But certainly if we're thinking about the program team and how the program team can help to support that, we do have our program team. So things like continuous improvement, we actually do have evaluations which take place at the end of each module delivery, where students are constantly feeding back both to the program team, but also to the university and the school. So that's an opportunity for us to have a discourse where we can say, is this meeting your needs? How can we help to meet those needs? How can we help to get the most out of the experience for you? So I'd say our program team works above and beyond to try and support our students in that capacity. And it's certainly something I'd say feedback is always welcome, and it's encouraged while you're on the program, because it's very, very important to us to make sure that you're getting out of the experience what you hope and what you need out of the experience as well.
Great, thank you. So we've had quite a few questions on scholarships and specific application sort of admissions questions. So I'm not going to touch on those right now because we could delve into details and then lose the focus of the webinar. But at the end of the webinar, just to reassure viewers, I'm going to overview or review the next steps you can take. And actually, there's quite a few concrete steps you can take to find out that information, or actually have discussions with relevant people here to get the information you need. But there is one question that I think is another really good question. So in 2022 and 2023, we were QS ranking number 5 and 3 respectively. What has changed in the EMBA programme that has meant that the ranking is now number 1 and was number 1 in 2024 as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as well, like I think the increase in global diversity is always something that's quite important. The strength of the research again is something that outweighs. The inner workings of rankings, always something too that the actual specifics of it is something that we need to leave to the rankings authorities as well. But certainly too, I would say if we're looking at the QS rankings and the actual international group of students that we've got, if you're closer to 2022, 23, you're kind of towards the end of the pandemic, you might have had slightly fewer people traveling at that time. Now we've got kind of back to normal and back to post-COVID. I know I don't want to always talk about that, and that's something that I'm sure everyone wants to move on from. But if you think about realistically in the class makeup of that, we're able to have quite a few international students come on. And I think I mean, it's just gained steam as a program. It's certainly one that that's on people's radar when they're thinking about business education. I think that's partially because of the strength of the program, the themes of the program, but then also the strength of the university.
Great, thank you so much. Moving on to the themes, the sort of learning pillars, if you like. Can you talk a little bit about the strategic leadership theme? And I know that we talk about the Oxford leader. And what makes, specifically, I guess, what makes the Oxford leader unique? And how do we develop those kind of skills and characteristics in someone?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when we're talking about strategic leadership, a necessary component of business nowadays, particularly too when we're thinking about business globally. So again, that'll be global complexity, but the importance of having that is really, really important. So we think now of, I would say the core component of the course, or one of the core components of our curriculum, is called the Oxford Leader. So it's a bit of a combination of our strategic leader and our negotiations. So things that you'll be thinking about are concepts like mobilizing systems, role of self-awareness, communicator, the role of the leader as a communicator and influencer, etc. So that is a component. It's taught over sort of 2 week-long modules where that's delivered as part of the program. Beyond that, if we're thinking about the Oxford Leader, we're also thinking about our wider setting here at the university and where we're located, and incorporating that into the leadership component of things. So say, for example, one of the favorites of our students on the program is something like the Oxford or the Oxford Leader Rowing Day. So it's an opportunity for the students to get down to the river, to explore some of those leadership contexts or components in situ through kind of a use case of rowing for a day. So that's one type of example. We also have other examples where we utilize different parts of the university to help do that. So say, for example, kicking off with a debate at the Oxford Union. So some of you might be familiar with the Oxford Union. It is certainly very well known, and it's an opportunity for our students to kind of engage in that space as well. So there's different components which are tied into into the strategic leader or the Oxford leader, which we then incorporate into the actual delivery of the program too in the experience.
Great, thank you. And global complexity and risk then, can you talk a little bit more about that? And we've actually had a really relevant question that I might top this one with as well, which can you share examples of how EMBA participants have accelerated into global leadership roles after completing the programme?
Yeah,
So it
brilliant.
might be nice to join that one up.
Yeah, perfect. So I would say in terms of global complexity, I'll start with that one first, and then we can talk about where people have gone on to. So global complexity, say for example, we've got, again, it's a core component of the program. So it's built into the core curriculum. Now, of course, it's threaded throughout other topics that are covered throughout the core curriculum as well, but we do actually have a specific sort of component that's taught on the program that is global complexity. So we start in global complexity with how markets interact across different countries and how those firms influence those business environments. And then that is kind of the first global rules of the game. And then we enter into what's called business and emerging markets, which is effectively a case study to explore this. And they use a particular country as as a case study where students go on an international trip to go see that. So they then explore the challenges and opportunity emerging markets create for multinational and indigenous firms using a particular country as a use case example. So say, for example, this past year, we had students who went to Peru, we had students who went to India and Vietnam, were some of the locations that students go to. Now, those might change kind of on as they go, as it naturally happens. I think with international locations, we're always mindful of sometimes political, economic, travel requirements sort of change at that time. But that is where they went in this past iteration as well, which was quite great. So say, for example, like in Peru, they're looking at the shipping industry and the shipping channel between Peru and China and how that affects kind of the actual ecosystem and business there locally as well, and how that impacts the wider context in the country. So then if we're thinking also about business in international settings, I think we can always talk about our international electives. We do offer international electives to increase that international exposure, and there are certainly many opportunities for sort of international experiences on the program. But things like our entrepreneurial finance elective, which takes place in Palo Alto in Silicon Valley. Then we've got our diversity and inclusivity in business, which takes place in Cape Town, South Africa. So those are just some examples. So again, giving a wider context to explore how does that actually happen within the wider, I think, global setting, and how does business actually take place, and what are some of those things that leaders need to consider. Thinking about our alumni who have gone on to do kind of global roles, I mean, we've got people who are in all sorts of different areas, so it's really difficult to sort of pin down, but we've had people who have gone on to kind of your classic sort of VC ventures who then go on to do that and to support either regionally, locally, or internationally to support businesses in the world. We have, say, for example, like a great case. I don't know if any of you had a chance to see it earlier last year, but our Space Week, we had, say, for example, two of our alumni who, off the back of their entrepreneurship project, created this company together and now work in kind of space waste industry, in the space industry together. They now work with ministries of defense kind of across the globe as part of that. So there's all sorts of different ways that people can get involved. We have people who go on to government. We have people who go on to international business in various capacities, who are traveling with some of those opportunities, say, for example, relocating, that might be doing that as well. But lots of different examples. So certainly as well, I mean, it's hard to pin down just one, but lots of choices. Hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, it's a tough question. And I would again would point people to the student blog because there are so many stories on that blog about people doing all sorts of things, lots of them in global leadership roles as a result of the Executive MBA at Oxford. So I really would have a read of those blogs. There's some really, really interesting, powerful stories there. So yeah, fab. Okay. And then finally, and I think I get most excited about this part is the entrepreneurial thinking part. And you've touched on it already with the entrepreneurship project, but I think what's really interesting about this is actually entrepreneurial thinking is relevant for everyone, not entrepreneurs and non-entrepreneurs. And you know, the benefit of that entrepreneurial thinking to your organization, it doesn't, entrepreneurial thinking actually is a skill that all leaders should be embracing. And that in my mind, and sort of, and I find that really, really interesting in terms of you don't have to be an entrepreneur. Actually, that's a key skill and a key part, a key theme of the program for a reason. And could you talk a little bit more about that and how
Yeah.
we embed that in the program?
Yeah, perfect. So entrepreneurial thinking, I think, again, there's many different ways that you can engage in entrepreneurial thinking on the program. I think if we're talking about the actual curriculum and embedded within the curriculum itself, we're looking at the entrepreneurship project is one of our key kind of components of that, which enables you to engage with a potential venture or idea, business idea in a small group setting to be able to explore all the way from ideation, potentially all the way through to market launch as well. So that's something that is included within the program. I would say it's an opportunity for people to explore potentially an idea that they don't have time to explore in their daily or their professional lives. So it creates that space to explore some ideas. Now, sometimes people will come in with an idea, sometimes people will join an idea because they've got a skill set that's beneficial to that idea. So that has gone on to produce some real life examples of some companies and some businesses off the back of that. I'd say beyond that too, we're thinking about kind of the wider entrepreneurship ecosystem here at the university. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the UK or with Oxford, Cambridge, Oxbridge, we've got what's called the Oxbridge Corridor, which is an innovation corridor. So that is a corridor within the UK that the government has committed to innovation and has recently committed additional resource to encourage innovation here in the UK. So thinking about the wider entrepreneurship landscape, there's all sorts of different ways to get involved. You've got anything from venture scouting to venture building. We have, say, for example, our entrepreneurship center offers a program called the Oxford Venture Builder Project. And that is something which is an extracurricular or co-curricular outside of what's taught on the Executive MBA. And we do certainly have quite a few students who end up going and participating on that program as well, where they have a chance to further dive into those business ideas that they have. Now, I think to Sophie's point as well, that not everyone is interested in being a startup or jumping into that entrepreneurship sort of lifestyle. There are all sorts of different ways that people can get involved. Anything from industry advising, you might have a specialism in a particular industry or a particular field, which is really beneficial to that space. Or we've got our innovation track, which offers people to employ entrepreneurial thinking within their current organizations, which don't necessarily mean that they have to then go on and create their own their own company off the back of it or their own business. So within that, all sorts of different ways. We also have what's called the Seed Fund, which is one of Europe's largest seed funds here. It's a very large initiative, and there's opportunities to either get involved in that or potentially be funded off the back of that if you have an idea, pitch an idea, and do that as well. Beyond that, the Entrepreneurship Center offers sort of a key kind of point across the wider university. So it's not just about the business school, it's about some of the IP and the research that's happening in and across the wider university. So lots of these research areas that are happening, say, for example, in STEM, that are happening in computer science, say, for example, those are all things that are then also potentially filtering through the Entrepreneurship Center as well, which business students might have an opportunity to engage with at some point or another during their time at the university.
Great, thank you so much. So I think I'm going to move forward with the questions a little bit because we've covered a lot of detail so far. So I'm going to ask two more questions about the course, and then just for viewers, we'll then move on to some more practical elements of the programme, such as balancing the programme studies with other commitments, admissions, and some other more sort of practical parts. So my first question to you, Siobhan, is about GNAM. So we are the only UK business school, the only UK business school, yes, to be a member of GNAM, which is the Global Network for Advanced Management. And what are the benefits of this for those who study on our programme?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know it, so the GNAM is the Global Network of Advanced Management. It's a membership body whereby select universities are participating members. We are the only participating member here in the UK. Now, because it was developed in the US, there are a couple more US institutions who are part of it, but typically it's only one university per country that's involved in it. So this offers opportunities to several different opportunities, I would say. So I can run through the different choices and the different chances. So there's the GNAM online courses, which are opportunities to gain a certificate from another university in a particular subject area. So oftentimes they'll run certain sessions on certain topics at different universities that our students do have the opportunity to take part in as part of the program. That's one. At the end of it, you gain a certificate from that university, which is quite nice. And I think that's what's quite special about GNAM as well, is you actually do gain at the end of that module week a certificate from that particular program. Now it's non-credit bearing, which means that it is an extracurricular. It's part of the program or a co-curricular. It's part of the kind of wider offering of the program, but not necessarily a core component of it. Then we have what's called the in-person exchanges. So that's an opportunity to travel to another university to participate in their executive MBA class. So to do that live in situ at that particular university. There are some which are incredibly popular. Say, for example, we have students who go to places like Yale, which is quite popular for different subject areas. But then we also have students who end up going to a location to do a particular subject area, which might not be covered in the curriculum here at the Said Business School Executive MBA. So there's a couple of opportunities there, lots of opportunities for international travel. So beyond just that, and I think we'll touch on that actually when we touch on the balancing time commitments, but certainly too, there's lots of opportunities to get really tucked into things. And again, it's going to be about balancing how much time or how much commitment you want to make to each individual thing. But certainly too, I'd say the last component, which they're just piloting this year, so it's not guaranteed that it'll carry forward, but the GNAM alumni pilot, which means that some participating GNAM universities have offered up or are trialing potentially an alumni offering that enables people to go to, or our alumni to go to some of those international locations as alumni. So again, it's not guaranteed. It's in the first iteration this year and they're trialing it this year, but it's been quite popular and quite successful this year. So again, thinking about lifelong learning, thinking about an opportunity to experience a new location, experience a new university, potentially get some more course content beyond what you've got, professional development is quite good. So those are some options there, but certainly if you haven't had a chance to look, I think Ali might have put into the chat the link to GNAM. It's a really interesting option and certainly something that quite a few of our students take part in.
Great. So just a couple of questions about before we move on to the balancing studies with time commitments. Post degree. So we've had a few questions about, obviously, and I know this is a burning questions for many people. What do alumni go on to do? And you've mentioned you've kind of talked about a few of the alumni and given a few case studies, which is great. And we've had another question about career pivots. And what I would say is I would really encourage people. I know it's the third time that I've mentioned it, but to have a look at the blog. So we've got quite a few bits to cover for the rest of this webinar. So I'd say to people, let's crack on with what we're talking about now. We're going to talk about funding, a little bit about admissions, and have a look at that blog in your own time, because you will find all sorts of stories about entrepreneurs, people in more corporate roles, people who are career pivoting, people who are moving sectors, and you will hear from people from such diverse backgrounds. So I think you'll really get the information and inspiration that you need on those blogs. But just a couple of questions about the alumni piece. So I hear our students and alumni say all the time, actually, that, or so often say to me that actually just having Oxford on my CV, the credibility of that was fantastic for my career. And I guess my question to you, Siobhan, is how does the global reputation of Said and Oxford influence professional opportunities? And I guess that's at home and abroad. So
Yeah, of
yeah.
course. I won't stay too long on this topic. I think really, I mean, we all know Oxford University. I think it is one of those few universities that carries weight globally, and is something that's recognized globally. You can tell probably from my accent that I'm not actually from here. I'm a classic example here at Oxford. So, my partner is a researcher. We moved 8 years ago because of a research opportunity for him. And it was one of those things too, when Oxford comes knocking, you don't necessarily turn away. So I think if you're thinking about kind of the global recognition of what this university and a degree from this university means, that's probably something that we've all got on our minds there. I think as well, I mean, it's been a program that produces really strong people in industry. And I think that's something too that we can't knock the fact that we've got brilliant alumni who are going on to do brilliant things, and that helps the reputation of the program and the people who are coming on the program, because everyone who comes on this program are very keen to achieve something and to go on to do something. And I think most people end up going on to do something really great. So it's definitely one of those things that it's our alumni and our students on program, and we're really lucky to have brilliant students on the program who go on to do really great things. And I think that helps future generations as well who are considering coming on the program.
Yeah, fantastic. And also, I think the broader Oxford networks and the, that students and alumni have access to also sort of create so many new opportunities, don't they, for students and alumni alike. Um, moving on then, thank you to balancing time commitments. So many of our students take on the EMBA, which is a big time investment. They have children and or careers, because actually I often meet students who have young families and careers and manage to study the EMBA. So how do they do this? How can you talk a bit about the structure of the program and actually give any advice for people who may be in similar situations?
Absolutely. You know what? Sometimes we think it's magic that they're able to do it all. It is incredible how much I think people can reprioritize when they have the necessity of reprioritizing things. When it comes to balancing everything, we're thinking oftentimes you hear from students and alumni, the way to balance it is to make sure that's communicated early and you've got buy-in early. So that's if you work for an organization, making sure that you've got support, not necessarily financially, albeit that's great if you can leverage that with your organization, but certainly support in terms of the time it takes to step away, to potentially turn off and focus on the studies, but then equally understanding the potential value that this degree can give to the workplace as well. So a lot of our students will actually do kind of two birds at the same time, and they'll focus a lot of their assessments on what's going on within their organization. So they sort of achieve two things at the same time, and then they can bring that back to their employer and make significant change and progress within their organization, or bring it back to their own companies themselves. So that's one thing. I think being quite clever about how they use their time and how they're using their time to benefit multiple things. Then I think as well, when it comes to the family commitment, I think that's one thing that we definitely are very aware of here, and we try to support kind of the family relationships here. as well. It's not just a commitment that you're taking on as an individual, but it's potentially a commitment for 2 years that your family's also taking on with you. So I think giving appreciation and support, involving them where you can, is quite important. And we do offer things, say, for example, we're just starting to plan or kind of starting to really ramp up planning with our Friends and Family Day for one of our cohorts here in July, which is really exciting. At which point we invite friends and family of our students to come and experience Oxford for a day, because it's important they know where their family members are going to all the time and what's taking up all their time. I would say being kind of fully aware and honest that, at some point you might have to set something down in order to balance everything. I think our MBAs are typically very good at being quite candid about this, particularly as alumni, that sometimes they've got to set something down to be able to make the other ones balance. But that might mean that at some points they set this one down to be able to pick up their family or their work lives. So I think it's always about that balance. We do certainly, I think, are very aware of that. I think the importance of balance here on the program. And it's certainly something that our program team and delivery team help to support our students with on a regular basis. So we know that the type of students who come on the program are people who are working, who are executive level professionals. So balancing that is always important, and we're here to help too.
Great, thank you. And moving on to funding, which I know we've had a couple of questions about scholarships and funding, and actually something that wasn't planning to cover, but I will add this in as well. So the MBA is a large financial commitment, and I'm sure those of you that are listening are sort of thinking, okay, how do I fund my studies? Do I student self-fund? Are there scholarships available? Discounts for alumni, and employer funding as well has also come up. So I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about how students fund their studies and the kind of the ways that we see them do that.
Yeah, of course. I think as with anything, I mean, we do have a number of scholarship and funding opportunities which are available. I'll always caveat that with they are limited number and competitive in nature, so something to be quite candid about right at the beginning. But certainly too, I mean, there are opportunities for funding within the business school. So we have, say, for example, our women's scholarships, which include our 30% club scholarships, which is a 50% or fee reduction, or our Forte scholarships. Then we also have our Directors Awards and, say, for example, our Hasmukh Patel scholarship as well, and our Ruli scholarship, which is an alumni funded scholarship. So we do have a number of different options in terms of scholarships and funding which are available. Beyond that, oftentimes in terms of thinking about loans, potentially, we do have students who go down that route and who explore that route. Some of the common ones are Lendwise and Prodigy, and I would say most business schools would suggest those ones as well, or say those ones as well. But then again, too, I think the piece on employer funding and not being afraid to share that with your employer, be candid with your employer, and get them on side nice and early is really good. And say, for example, yesterday we were just at another event celebrating sort of women in leadership, and I think some of you might actually be on the call today, so nice to see you again. But yeah, we were hearing from some of our alumni too who went down different routes. We had someone who asked for employer support. They contributed a small financial amount, but then also really supported them in terms of time. And then we had someone who asked their employer and then got a full funding and didn't expect that. So I think being willing to ask is also quite important in that capacity. But there is also another piece there that even if your employer won't fund or support financially, getting them on side with that time off, and sometimes employers will certainly be quite amenable to offering different levels of time off or support while you're off to support your studies as well. So that's another avenue to be thinking of that route. I would say definitely plan it. And it's something that, of course, it's a large commitment in financially and in terms of time, but something that quite a few people manage to do. But again, it's just how they do it individually, whether or not they use savings, whether or not they go the loan route, or whether or not they help to part fund via scholarships as well. But certainly as well, looking locally, if you've got any funding or scholarship opportunities locally, sometimes there are opportunities depending on which region you're from that you can carry over with you as well.
Great. And as I sort of mentioned very briefly, we've had 2 or 3 questions from Oxford alumni asking about the alumni discount. And it's great that we've got Oxford alumni on the call. It's fantastic. And just wondering, do we offer an alumni discount? If so, what is that for alumni for the Executive MBA?
Yeah, perfect. So we don't, in terms of the alumni discount, not a discount, but we do offer a scholarship. So it's called the Oxford Community Scholarship. So that is one per cohort, which is available either to an alumnus of a degree-bearing program or here at Oxford, or a staff member here at Oxford. So that's
Right.
certainly one route, and we do have quite a few alumni who have taken advantage of that opportunity as well, which is really great. So that's one thing to be mindful of if you want to have a look at the fees and funding pages for the alumni option. It's called the Oxford Scholarship. But that's the main one. I would say we do also have, so say for example, through our diploma pathway program, our diploma students, executive diploma students, have a discount that comes off the cost of their off the cost of the EMBA if they've completed one of our executive diplomas as well. So for any of you who are considering between the executive diploma and or the EMBA, there's also a route that way in which there's a small discount that's afforded off the back of that as well.
Brilliant. And my final question then before we move on to audience questions is, could you just outline the application process for those who are really keen and want to start their applications really soon?
Yeah, great. So we've got two intakes. So we've got a September intake, we have a January intake. We are sort of, if you're thinking about September 2025, we're at the tail end of the admissions cycle for September 25 admissions. So we do have another stage admissions deadline, which you can apply by. That's the 1st of July. And then again, that's going to be also for consideration for January 26. So what I would say in terms of the admission, thinking about which intake that you want to make an application to, because you have to make state that in your application. Then the application process is sort of an application process which you would expect from most universities. So it's going to include completing an application form, providing supplementary documentation. So say, for example, any certificates or degrees that you have, etc., any certifications that you've got that you are putting as part of your application. Then we ask for 3 essays. So the first essay is, why do you want to complete an executive MBA here at Oxford? So a little bit of a reflection. And again, going back to that being purposeful, intentional, the reflection piece as to why you want to complete the program. What about this specific program sort of links into your aspirations? That's something to be thinking about. The second one is a self-reflection piece on, or essay is a self-reflection ask on how would you describe yourself and how would others describe you? What are your strengths and weaknesses as well? When we're thinking about leadership and strategic leadership, that component of understanding yourself as a leader and that self-reflection component carries as a theme throughout the program. So it initiates that sort of reflection as part of the application process. And then finally, we have the third essay, which is asking you about a challenge that you experience in your organization and 3 potential approaches that you would take to address those challenges. So that's a bit more of a strategic engagement, thinking about how you would critically engage with potential challenge in your workplace. Then we ask for a video essay, which is kind of linked to that third component, which is a chance for you to pitch that to, say, for example, like a leadership level, so C-level, board level, etc. And then references and any funding essays, waiver requests, etc. So all of that is in that application form, and you can complete it all and submit it all within that application form as well.
Great, thank you. So do you want to add anything else, Siobhan, before we move on to a few questions from the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really just to say too, and I think one of the things that I didn't touch on is in the balancing time and commitments that I think I ought to circle back to, simply because, especially because we were at the Women in Leadership event yesterday too, that I think too often we see a lot of women, and particularly when we've got women kind of average age of 39, either with young families or carrying commitments who are coming on the program. Just to say that that's something that we take very seriously here at the university. For example, we have in the business school, we've got a parenting room. And that was actually born out of a great idea of one of our students who ended up having a baby whilst she was on the program and needing a safe space to nurse. And that was something that was actually a collaborative effort between between the business school here and the students based on feedback and experiences there. So we're really happy to say that we support that. We support people in the program, particularly who have family responsibility. So just a bit on the balancing thing, but otherwise, I'm happy to answer any other questions that anybody has here today.
Thank you. We've got we've got a few questions, so I'm going to start with this one. So, can you speak to the program and its impact on leadership in the non-profit sector?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've got plenty of people who come on the program who work in nonprofit, not-for-profit. We have also at the business school what's called the School Center for Social Enterprise. And that's something too that people who come from that NGO nonprofit space might be interested in getting involved in as well. I think again, I mean, when it comes to thinking about priorities of social impact, social enterprise, that's something that I think we're addressing very similar challenges, maybe with a different scope or a different lens. But certainly we have lots of people. We've got, say, for example, people who have studied on the program who work for the Center of Natural or Disaster Prevention and Protection. We have people who come from nonprofit NGO education, different types of social impact on the course. So certainly as well, we've got lots of people on program. I would say too, if you're thinking about sustainability, Oxford Martin School tying in with the Blavatnik School, et cetera, there's lots of opportunities for cross collaboration there on the program. But it's very common to have someone from nonprofit, NGO, not for profit on the program as well.
Right. Great. And another really great question, because I don't think we've really covered this in too much detail, was what sort of help is being provided for career uplift?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say the career uplift, we've got the two sort of facets of that. We've got our executive careers and we have our executive coaching, and they offer slightly different types of services to our students. So in terms of our executive careers team, we have a dedicated executive careers team and an executive MBA group who help our students on program. But they offer both programmatic services. So say, for example, they run a calendar of events and activities based on what previous students or current students are asking for. So that could be anything from sessions on how to gain board level positions or how to increase board presence. They also have things that which are sector specific. So say, for example, networking events. There's an entire kind of calendar throughout the course of the year and a journey that they take you on. Beyond that, part of the programmatic executive careers function is particular sessions which help you to think about where it is that you want to go. So self-reflection opportunities to think about what career do you want to pursue, what career do you want to path do you want to follow, is this the correct career path for you, etc. Beyond that, then they have one-to-one coaching. So I think too that's another one which is quite important, and our students make use of it quite often, and they'll often come back as alumni as well and make use of the executive coaching. So that is an opportunity to engage with one of our executive career coaches one-to-one to participate in. Then finally, we've got what's called the executive coaching. So thinking about your leadership potential, which is a completely different thing than the executive careers, but complements it very nicely. So our executive career coaching is thinking about your role as a leader and your capacity as a leader. So you're given the core kind of content and the core competencies through your actual curriculum on leadership, but then this also offers you a point of self-reflection and a point of group reflection. So we have both group coaching and we have individual one-on-one executive executive coaching as well that our students take part in. So I think combined both ways, it's thinking about what do you want to do and how do you want to do it, and that's quite important. So that's the type of support that we've got available here.
Great, thank you. So we've managed to get through most questions. So apologies if we haven't got to your question. But what I'm going to share next should really help. So I'm just going to share a couple of slides if that's okay. So basically, just a little bit about next steps before we sign off for the day. can everyone see my slide? Can you see my slides? Yes, perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to talk you through application deadlines and then 3 next steps that you can take right now to sort of progress your journey or take the next step in your decision-making journey with Oxford. So first of all, Siobhan's already mentioned, we've got 2 cohorts every year. So we enroll students in September and we also enroll students in January. We are on our final application deadline for the September 2025 cohort. So this will be your last opportunity to apply this year. So it's not long. And in a minute, I'll share a slide with next steps. And it might be that you want to act quite quickly if you're really keen to put an application in for September 2025. We've also got 3 deadlines for January 2026. So the 1st of July, which is obviously the same as the September 25 deadline, the 8th of September and the 10th of November. And we do recommend applying early. It increases chances of getting a place on the course, as well as being aligned with your preferred college of choice, as well as being considered for a scholarship for eligible candidates. So there's the deadlines, and they are published on our website as well on our apply page, which is linked to from our website course page. And then the next steps you can take. Now, I'm really mindful that you will all be at different stages of your decision-making journey. But if you haven't already, I'd really recommend uploading your CV via our website course page. And this is a fantastic way for you to connect with our expert recruitment team. And actually, they will evaluate your CV and they will let you know whether they think you could be an eligible candidate for the Executive MBA. If you are, then they will really encourage you to book a one-to-one meeting with them. And this is when you can connect with them in person. You can ask your questions. You can discuss in a lot more detail your goals, your aspirations, your experiences, and actually the alignment that you might have with the Executive MBA and whether it would be the right fit for you. And then, of course, applying. So starting your application. You can do all of this from the website. There's lots of tips and advice on the website. There's lots of admissions criteria as well. If you are really keen to apply for September 2025, there isn't long before the 1st of July deadline. So I would recommend scanning the QR code as soon as possible, visiting our website course page and actually booking a one-to-one meeting with a recruitment manager as soon as possible, because the sooner you start your application, the better, so that you can successfully complete the assignments. So you can book that meeting via a link from the web page. So everything you need will be on that website course page. And yeah, basically, thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, hopefully it was really useful. Hopefully you got the information you need and also feel really inspired about confident about your next step. So I'll leave this slide up for a minute for those of you who do want to just jot that web address down or scan the QR code. And we really look forward to hopefully hearing from you soon. All right, take care, everybody. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thanks so much, everyone. It was nice to see so many people joining.
Bye.